Hello, everyone. It's Trisha Anbinder. I am a therapist in Atlanta, and I specialize in working with folks experiencing infertility and reproductive trauma. I'm one of the co-founders of the Atlanta Fertility Support Alliance, and I'm one of the support group facilitators for the Jewish Fertility Foundation in Atlanta. And the Jewish Fertility Foundation has asked me to help frame a response to some of the clients who are really, really struggling right now as a result of the coronavirus, COVID-19, the social distancing, the whole experience right now. I first want to say how deeply sorry I am to those of you who are struggling through this period. I know well that many of you have had interventions, treatments, IUI cycles, IVF cycles, surgeries that you've been planning for a long time, that you've been anticipating for a long time, that you have been seeing as the next step towards building your family. And to have those canceled or cut short, postponed, puts an already very helpless feeling situation just even more out of control. And that can feel excruciating and desperate and extraordinarily lonely. So I just want to tell you all that I'm keeping you in my heart. I know that this is truly an exquisitely painful time for all of you. The questions that Jewish Fertility Foundation has been getting and the questions that I've been getting in my own practice from folks that I work with is how do I cope with this, right? Infertility in and of itself, struggling with infertility, it involves such a range of emotions. Anger, jealousy, deep sadness, absolute despair, overwhelm, financial fears, all of it. And this experience right now of having everything kind of thrown up in the air and no answers as to when things will resume, having to wait on top of waiting on top of waiting, is just unfair. It's fairly cruel. But knowing that these guidelines have been put into place to keep us all safe, to keep you all safe, to keep pregnant women safe, we know that we're doing the right thing, but it just hurts a lot. So how do we cope? I guess the first thing that I want to say is don't be so quick to rescue yourself from the pain. And that may sound counterintuitive coming from a therapist or really anyone, but we live in a society that really chases happiness and that puts a very high value on happiness, and which is fair. Happiness is wonderful. But we really can't discount the importance of feeling the full range of our emotions. And many of you are feeling intense grief and anger, and that is all valid. That makes you human, having a very human response to a very unfair, awful experience. So, I think we often don't know how to make room for the grief that is so normal in these kinds of situations. But in reality, grief has its own wisdom. It's amazing. One of my favorite quotes is, there's no easier way to let go. Hold on to this grief dearly until it lets go of you. And I think that is such powerful advice. Let this grief do its job. The grief has its own wisdom, and you, your mind, your body, your spirit, you have your own compass. So the more you trust that, the easier it will be to make your way through. The more we resist the pain and try to push it away and try to rescue ourselves from it, oftentimes the more stuck we become. So I know there are probably people who have all sorts of advice how to feel better and how to get yourself out of this pit, but the reality is you will. This will not feel this way forever. Feelings are, I like to think of them as waves, right? We can't control the waves. We can learn how to surf. So the more you respect that the waves will do their thing and that you can find your own response to them and not try to hold them off, the more you will be able to kind of see them as things that are temporary, right? And grief, when you're experiencing something as sudden and abnormal and disorienting as this pandemic and the response, the grief is going to feel like a tsunami. It's going to feel overwhelming. It's going to feel like it could take you under, like you might not be able to survive, but you will. And eventually you will see that the waves do crash. They do. The tidal waves may keep coming, but eventually they do slow, they steady, and we find our own steadiness again. It's easiest to do that when, again, we recognize them for what they are. This is grief, this is pain, and it's not dangerous. It's just where you are right now. It's uncomfortable, but you've survived a lot so far. You'll keep surviving. So what does surfing look like? What do I mean when I say learn to surf? So I think of a few things that coping with this kind of grief entails. One is, and this is always the foundation, connection, which of course right now is particularly difficult to pull off. Usually when someone's experiencing infertility, they're already feeling a lot of isolation from friends and family, right? If they're feeling like friends and family don't know how to say the right things that feel supportive, or they don't really feel safe being vulnerable with their feelings, finding connection can be really challenging. Add to it social distancing and just a shutdown of our day-to-day interactions with people. That isolation and loneliness is magnified, of course. So it's going to be on you to find ways of maintaining connection. If you are part of Jewish Fertility Foundation, and I hope you are, and have a fertility buddy, this is a great time to lean on them. If you have been attending support groups, the support group that I run at the Jewish Fertility Foundation and all of the JFF support groups are now going to be held online. Resolve has some online support forums. If you have been kind of trying to connect more with your partner over this experience, now is the time to do that. Best friends. What it's critical to do is to find people who feel safe, even if they're not always able to say the right thing, and help those people learn how to support you. So they may not know how to say the right thing at first, but as long as there's enough safety established in the relationship, you may need to teach them what it means to support you, what it means not to try to rescue you from your pain, what it means to really be empathic and just make space for the grief that you're having. So, that is going to be a really critical piece of maintaining some sense of purpose in all of this, of feeling somewhat grounded. I have found during this social distancing period that usually these teleconferences are much more effective than trying to connect over the phone, and there's good science for that. Part of the reason is that we rely on facial cues. We rely on nonverbal communication to co-regulate. And by co-regulate, I mean kind of helping each other maintain calmness and peace within ourselves. So if we can't connect in person, having some connection over video seems to be the next best thing. The next thing that I think is really important, pull my notes back up here, is containment. And containment is an interesting concept. I think a lot of times people think that containing your feelings is something akin to suppressing them or avoiding them. And in fact, it's really different. I'm going to use another metaphor here. I really like metaphors. If you're thinking of kind of this overwhelm of feelings that you don't know what to do with, we have a choice. We can either let them just kind of spill out all over the place and take up whatever space they will and feel really messy and unglued all of the time. And sometimes that's just where we have to be. And sometimes it feels like I got to do something with this. And so we take them all and shove them into a box and then get our packing tape and tape it all up and carry it up to the attic, shove it into a corner and leave it there. And that's all well and good for feeling distanced from the feelings temporarily. But what we know about feelings is that they will find a way. They will find a way. And if we don't experience them as grief and sadness and despair, we will experience them as agitation, anger, rage, helplessness, hopelessness. So it's important that we maintain access to our feelings while still feeling like we have some control over the way that we experience them. So I like to think of containment as kind of carrying with us a big mason jar, right? And if we kind of think of that as the container for our feelings, we can see through a mason jar. We can recognize them. We can see what they are. We can name them. And when we are in a place of safety and with someone with whom we feel safe, we can open the jar. We can take the lid off. We can process what's inside with each other. And then when we have done what we can with our feelings for the time being, we can put them back in and put the lid of the jar back on and feel like we've had some authenticity with them, but also some control over how much space they take up. And the last thing that I think could be helpful in times of great, intense despair and grief is changing our headspace. And that is, once we've done some of the containing, finding ways of getting into an altered place that doesn't feel quite as heavy. And so sometimes that looks like getting into a creative headspace, doing something that like art or reading fiction or coloring, anything like that. It can look like meditation, finding some way to kind of rise above our feelings, and I usually recommend guided meditation for something like this, because trying to quiet ourselves often feels overwhelming and we can't quite get there. So finding some guided meditations, whether it's through an app or something online. In a minute I'll tell you about some resources that you can find on our website. And the last way of getting into a different headspace would be using our body, right? Whether that's exercise or yoga or an alternative therapy like acupuncture or massage. There's a great therapy called tapping, so that I will mention in a moment as well. So doing something that connects you to your body and grounds you to your body that has nothing to do with infertility. Because so much of what you all have been experiencing has been a really negative association with your body. So finding some other way to connect with your body and ground there can be really helpful. So that's it for now. I do want to mention that at Atlanta Fertility Support Alliance, we have updated our website with a page dedicated to coping with the impact of COVID-19 on your fertility treatments. Our website is www.atlantafsa.com for Atlanta Fertility Support Alliance. And there you will see a page that says Coping with the Impact of COVID-19. And on that page, we have listed lots of different meditations, different resources that you can find online during the social distancing period. Some are things that you can access that you can find online that just live online, and some are streaming live. Great option. I mentioned the tapping is something to check out that is listed on the website. There's someone local, her name is Dr. Jill Weiner, who does some tapping exercises with folks for free every day at noon during the social distancing. We have resources, all sorts of acupuncture, massage, so you can certainly reach out if you want any of those resources as well. And of course, I'm available. My partner Shubha Swami, the other co-founder of Atlanta Fertility Support Alliance, is available. If you, we are both seeing clients virtually through video conferencing. We have plenty of colleagues who are doing the same. So I hope that during this time you will give yourself permission to access as much support as you possibly can from people who really understand what this experience is. We can't do this alone, and we are here for you. So we will get through this. We are here to help you, and please let us know how we can continue to do that. Stay safe, stay well, stay connected, and we'll be in touch. Take care.